this state, but across the country. We were certainly thankful and grateful for the verdict. We heard President Biden on last evening say what he was planning to do and hoped to have done. And so today we want to not only say that on one end justice was done, it is a bittersweet verdict. And when I say bittersweet, on one end we are thankful and grateful for the jurors who found Derek Chauvin guilty, but there are countless more who have not been found guilty and who trials are going on recently. There are 3 other officers who will be tried later this year. And so to this community and to this state, we are grateful for the justice that has been done, but that there is much more justice in the police departments around the country. There has to be more accountability. And so there is this human existence that is transpiring in this country, and we're willing to stand and share with you in reference to how we want to proceed. There are some things that we want to see happen in New Haven, in the police department. I had a conversation with the chief this morning in reference to us meeting to talk about how we are going to patrol the black community. And so Stephen Cousin will come and talk about the video that was shown the other day at Walmart, and then we'll go from there.
Good morning. As most of you may be aware, that there was a video that was released by a local newspaper called the New Haven Independent, releasing body cam footage of an incident that occurred last Wednesday at a Walmart off of Foxton Boulevard. And although we're still waiting what the decision will be, we actually still get pause, and we are still greatly concerned about what occurred, where this administration, along with the police department, just held a de-escalation training on Monday and leading up to what occurred last Wednesday. And you have to ask yourself, how was that event de-escalated? Where you actually heard the gentleman saying that he did not take anything but shoes or socks, and yet you still heard the verbal commands given by the officer. I believe that in the article it was stated that de-escalation was listening to the person. Where was the conversation being had in that video? We always say that Connecticut is not Minnesota, it's not Ohio. But we have to remind ourselves, we're just one trigger away from being Minnesota, from being Ohio, from being in Kansas. It can happen anywhere. As I said, we need to make sure that we train our officers in being empathetic to the ones who they are policing. That you have to be able to see each other as your own child, your mother, your father, your grandparents. If you still have this fear of other, then de-escalation will never work. Only when you are immersed in our society, immersed in the communities that you're policing, only can true de-escalation begin. So as we're still waiting for the full investigation, and we have to remind you, was it worth it to use a taser and a handgun drawn on a person for something that was worth $100 worth of merchandise, where a person could have lost their life? Ask yourself, is it worth it? Was that necessary for that to occur. To be at a Walmart, given, not knowing his situation, but to have that type of encounter, I believe that everybody is traumatized by what we witnessed, but we see it countless times. But we must continue to work together. We must continue to move forward in justice and in progress. Thank you.
Let me have John Lewis to come and share with us about de-escalation. He has done some classes in reference to that, and so he will come and talk to us about that, and then we have one more speaker, and then we'll have questions.
Just kind of, again, reiterating what Pastor Cousins said and Dr. Kimber had also spoken of. When we talk about just de-escalation, we talk about engagement with a community that you're policing. There's no need, again, I believe even right now, de-escalation is something that is being, the real issue is being covered up with. You don't have to de-escalate if you really have relationship or engagement and respect and value the individuals that you are policing. There's too many videos out there that show the encounters with police when it's a white suspect that's pulled over and they wrestle with the cops, they beat the cops with billy clubs, the Capitol incident, when you look at all of them things that went on, or even officers lost their life, nobody shot, nobody, and I'm not promoting that. However, there's a problem. And we must understand the root of that problem. We can de-escalate the cops all years after years, which we have. But the real core value is respect for life. It's to value the community that you are policing. Yes, we have a low level of officers that are not applying for the department, and we might have enough, but there's something wrong that they're not getting in. We need to address that. We need to have more visual policing. Those that live in the community, police the community. So let's fix that. Let's put some money into that. Because again, except that relationship is fostered, your de-escalation training really does not matter when you have officers that are trained. First of all, you train them in a military way. Now you want to train them to be a human in some kind of way. You got to balance that out. They're coming in getting trained in a using deadly force. The videos that they're watching when they get pulled over, they're showing cops getting murdered at a traffic stop, and then you play those videos over and over again. So of course they're going to be fearful about pulling people over. So again, we must revisit what these officers are getting trained. We must really understand about community engagement and relationship, and we must allow the community to be involved in the decision making when it comes down to training these officers that are policing us, that are policing the people that they're supposed to serve. So let's really think about that, and let's really put some thought to that and involve the community in those decisions. Don't make that decision on your own. We have worked with the police department here in New Haven. So why and I'm not knocking the training of the officer that they got coming back, the retired officer that's doing the training now. However, it would have been nice in a collaborative effort for us to get a phone call and say, look, this is what we're thinking about doing. How do you think we could work this together? That's what we need to really look at, is the collaborative effort of working together and not making single decisions on your own.
Thank you, John. Rodney Williams, who is a contractor in this city, will come and speak in reference to the $94 million from the rescue plan that has come to the city and how it's going to be spent.
Good evening, all. Good morning, my mistake. I would just like to say this. I grew up in New Holtville. My business is in New Holtville. With this amount of money coming to this city and the amount of jobs that's going on in the city, I feel like they need to take some of this money and invest it in training so we could train the residents in our city for the jobs that not only are in our city right now, but the jobs that's coming. You talk about summer programs for the youth. We need that too, but the truth is this: if we prepare our kids for a future, that would be a good investment. The economic guy, the economic development, Mike Piscatelli talking about for it to have a lasting impact. Investing it in our community, it would do a lot of things like bring crime down. Is needed, and I'm kind of like lost for words because what happened yesterday, and I'm talking about this. But please take some of that money, invest in our future, our kids. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are a host of issues in which we have spoken about today. The George Floyd, a piece that we are certainly want to take from that and move forward when it comes to the action with police officers and with our community. And I think we have to applaud this jury, which certainly wasn't an all-black jury. It was a multicultural jury, and it was white jurors also. And so let's look at where we are in this city and how we are going to correct what is wrong. I think the real issue is you cannot make a decision about a black community if black people are not at the table. Got to be at the table. So we were not at the table in reference to the de-escalation part of it, and for the sake, I do not know how a police officer who have been a part of the Blue Shield now can come in and teach de-escalation and say to officers how to treat black young men and women when you come to our community. We were not at the table to discuss that. I suggest that if we were at the table, then we would have said that let's talk about urban trauma. Yes. Our people have trauma in this community. We live in the inner city. Yes. So let's share about urban trauma. And so that's where we are. The training has, I mean, it's disgusting and despicable to see an officer with a taser in one hand, a gun in another hand, and here's the individual on the ground. Come on. That is not policing. No. That is saying, I am going to deal with this how I want to deal with it. And that's a problem, that you can beat black men and women and nothing said about it. And now you want to say, we want to do de-escalation in the city, and then you put a white person in front of the class to try to talk about our problems. We got a problem here. And so that's where we are today. And we were not at the table to talk about $94 million. What was our concern? Where should the money be spent? I don't even know whether all the persons was at the table. If they want us to stop having press conferences, bring us to the table. And if you don't bring us to the table, we will continue to call you out. And we will continue to call the mayor out, because the mayor is insensitive to this black community. Are there any questions? Hold on, John.
You mentioned obviously the George Floyd verdict yesterday, and then the Lamar incident that you're discussing. Both of those cases involve alleged petty crimes that escalated into use of force by police officers. Can you discuss those parallels and how they relate to just everyday policing that we see in the city that we don't normally see on video?
I think the parallel is George Floyd had they say he had a counterfeit $20 bill. Here's the person at Walmart who picked up some underclothes.
Worth about $20.
And here one lost their life, and here one didn't but had a gun and a taser pointed at him at the same time. What kind of policing is that on the George Floyd piece and on this young, on Mr. Baker piece? What kind of policing is that? What training? Shoot first and doctor the report second? So I like to see and hear the report on what this officer was thinking.
Well, the officer says, remember that he saw the gentleman in question reach into his pocket and reach into his hand. So your thoughts on that?
He reached into his pocket to bring out the items that he had stolen. You could look at this guy to say that he wasn't a threat. He wasn't a threat. And by the way, he was in his car. And if he had drove away, then the officer should have taken his tag number and called it in.
For shoplifting.
Shoplifting. You mean you get killed over shoplifting? You get killed over a $20 counterfeit bill? Let me share this with you. They do not value our lives as blacks.
That's the problem.
And that's where we are. They don't value our lives. Every day, every day, some black person is being killed across this country by a police officer.
60 during the trial.
And here we are dealing with mass shootings, mass murdering every day. And then you have Congress and Senate not being able to make a decision about mass killing, people losing their lives. We're in trouble. And the trouble will not stop until we come to the table and be a part of the discussion. Who was a part of the discussion when they decided that they want to do de-escalation training and train police officers who know nothing about this community? Who was at the table? What black person was at the table?
Dr. Kim, want to say something?
Yes.
You asked a question about the similarities. It's hard being African American in this country. If you look at what happened to Eric Garner, he lost his life outside a convenience store. Look at Trayvon Martin, lost his life while walking back from a convenience store with a bag of Skittles. Look at Michael Brown, actually left a convenience store. Look at what happened with George Floyd, left a convenience store. This gentleman last Wednesday left a Walmart. How we can go to the most commonest places and still have the potential to lose our lives. Where these are the things that we have to wake up and think about our every single action, whether it be at a gas station, at a convenience store, or a store where everybody just regularly shops, where we have the tendency to lose our lives. As something as small as a $20 counterfeit bill, a bag of Skittles, a loose cigarette, or even some shirts and some underwear.
Come on.
We have the tendency to lose our lives. Where we talk about de-escalation, it only works if both community and law enforcement are at the table together. Where we may see it, they can give us their point of view, but they never understand our point of view. To wake up black in America, it's constantly mean that we're putting our lives on the line. No matter what store we walk into, whether we get inside our car, or even going inside our homes, we have a tendency to lose our lives. And that is the danger, and that is the threat that we face every single day. George Floyd did not wake up thinking that he was going to lose his life that day. This man at Walmart did not think he would be encountered by an officer so aggressively on that day for merchandise worth less than $100 that they have insurance for. Was that necessary? Was that encounter necessary? That's the question you have to ask yourselves. And on January 6th, when you had those that stormed the Capitol, what we watched that resulted in 5 deaths included the death of an officer. After 6 p.m., we saw all of those persons that actually raided property, vandalized property, took property, walked away, were able to go home to their families. We don't have that luxury. People talk about destroying property when there's riots, how they're so fearful of that. But imagine the fear that we have just by getting up in the morning, doing things that are just so commonplace, how we can lose our lives in an instant. That's the fear. And these are the similarities. It's nothing major, just things that we do every single day and how we can lose our lives.
You mentioned that you have had meetings with the acting chief. Can you go into detail about what those meetings detailed regarding this incident?
We have not had a meeting. We spoke with her this morning, and we are planning a meeting hopefully by end of the week or early next week to discuss how we proceed in their de-escalation training. We have major problems with that. Listen, we're living in 2 worlds. We're living in a black world. We're living in a white world. What's good for whites ain't good for blacks. And people say, well, you're starting a race ride. No, we're telling the truth about what is happening here. You're talking about this clergy association is almost 75 years old. There were those who came before us who stood and spoke truth to power about how people were being treated and what is happening within our community. So we're not doing anything different that the E.R. Edmonds done at Dixwell Church, C.M. Cofield did at Emmanuel Church, T.E. Holmes at Community Church, Jeremiah Wright at the New Hope Church, C.H. Brewer at Trinity Temple. We are not doing anything less than what they have done to speak out on behalf of the injustice in our community. Listen, it's painful to stand here this morning. It is very painful to me. And I'm afraid, just not for myself, but I got boys. I got girls. I'm afraid. And when you shoot them, the first thing that they say, my life was in danger. I know how to operate when we got a multiplicity of problems in our community. What are we going to do?
The New Haven Police Department promotes itself as one of the most progressive in the country. How do you square that with what you see?
Well, we have made it progressive. And when I say we have, black clergy have been meeting with the police department since Chief Pastor. So they can't take that credit by themselves. We have been at the table directing and putting our input in on how they to operate. And since we've had this new mayor come in, he was the one who said to the police department, we're going to take your money. We want to defund the police. You're talking about taking some $4 or $5 million away from the budget and expecting the police department to continue to operate like they did 5, 6 years ago. We got a problem. And until this city government recognizes that we have a problem, we're going to continue to stand. Final thing I want to say, everybody talking about, well, it was going to be riots last night, even if the verdict came down not guilty or guilty. That wasn't a riot anywhere. Not anywhere. Why? Because justice prevailed. When justice prevailed and the world sees what takes place, then there will not be any riots. There will be excitement about justice taking place. I think it was Amos who talked about that justice rolled down the mountain. Yes, sir. No. We're not his boss. I think that the mayor and the chief need to sit down and really look at this and allow them to make the decision on what should take place. We do know that there needs to be something to take place, though, because that wasn't good training there. That wasn't good training at all.
And the other thing, too, it's not just about one officer. The problem is the repeated activity that comes from what they quote-unquote call they've been getting the de-escalation training. It's the mindset that is the problem. It's the mindset of the officers that are coming into our black communities and devaluing our life, even because they feel that we devalue our own life. It is time for the community at large, and the clergy to now say to ourselves, where do we go from here? It's time for the media also, and all of those reporting channels that record and report on these different events to start to really stop devaluing us. When a white person does something, you never see the video yet until later on. When a black person does something, they're criminalized and looked at as a monster. They're called all these type of names. When you got mass shootings, he had a bad day. When you have a young man, I'm not condoning none of that. But when you have a young man kick an Asian person, which is absolutely wrong, he's a monster, he's terrible. See, it's the media also that starts to put in the minds of the people what we look like, and then sometimes it's our own people who qualify what they say. But today, we as a people, as a black community, and I say this to all of us, clergy and the community, no longer will we allow America or this system to say who we walk with. They took away the possibility of Malcolm and Martin yesterday, but they won't take it away today. We must stand for change, and we must hold this system accountable to give us what we need in order for us to heal our communities, and that we ourselves will be able to make decisions that will be right for us. You don't know what's right for us. We know what's right for us. So it's time for you to give us our just due, and if that does not happen, and if we do not see that in progress, I say to us as a people, it's time for us to gather ourselves and think about what we need to do for ourselves, because nobody else is going to do that for us. We got to do it for ourselves. And I close on this. Y'all love our money, but you don't love us. So I think we need to think about that.
Any other questions?
Just talking about the way the Walmart situation was and other situations about police procedures there. The police chief said, on the surface, it looks like the officer did everything the way he was taught. So, first it was the taser when he pulled the door open, and then it was the taser and the gun when the gentleman got out of the car and reached his hands around his back. So could you see that the officer could think he might have been reaching for something?
What I saw is a person looked at as though he had some mental issues.
Yes, sir.
That's what I saw.
Yes,
He kept apologizing.
He kept apologizing. Does that look like a person who's going to shoot you? Who keeps saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did this. I'm sorry.
Come on, man.
But does that look like a person who was going to shoot a police officer? I assume, and I don't know, that their training is to shoot first and ask questions later.
No, man.
So here we are. And we're making a plea to this community today. Wake up. Hold on now. Let's wake up. Let's wake up. Let's take ownership ourselves.
Yes,
Let's patrol ourselves.
yes.
Let's not be fooled by our family members and for those who are doing illegal things on the street. Let's take ownership. If we take ownership of our own community, I guarantee you, things will be better, they will treat us better, and they will understand that we're taking care of our own community. Any other questions?
The verdict yesterday, what in your mind does that mean for policing moving forward?
I think that the jurors, the prosecutors did an excellent job. I mean, the whole world saw Derek Chauvin's knee on George Floyd's neck with almost a grin on his face, with his hands in his pocket. The world saw that. And so it is still a sad commentary that a person has to die like that.
Yes, sir. Yes,
From persons who are supposed to help them,
yes, sir.
protect them.
Yes, sir.
So no, I'm grateful for the verdict, but there's still pain in our community. Yeah.
And although that's one small step, we cannot forget Adam Toledo, what occurred in Chicago, 13-year-old boy who lost his life. We cannot forget, as yesterday, when the verdict was being read, Michaela Bryant, 16 years old, with a knife in her hand, lost her life.
Yeah.
You cannot forget about Dante Wright,
Yeah.
for an officer trained for 26 years on the force,
Yeah.
and mistaken her taser for a gun. That's what I'm saying. It's one person that was held accountable, but there are many more and many steps we need to take.
Yes, sir.
So although this is one step, there are many more steps that we need to take and to address to actually really truly achieve equality and racial progress.
Any other questions? So Rock, we call him Rock. He's out in the community every day, working with people, giving out masks, and he's been in these streets. He know these streets. Go ahead, Rock. And then we done. I got to go back to work.
I want to say this. My nephew was involved in a police shooting, and I just want to speak to when Kimber was talking about something. The first thing you said was about them reaching. I want to bring something to you guys' attention, the media. Like, every time something happens to somebody black by an officer, it's always they was doing this or they was doing that. But I want to ask you, what about all the white people that's out here shooting people, killing them, and they got guns and they just go arrest them? A black person act like he about to dig in his nose and we get shot. They always fear for their life when they interact with black people, but white people, when they interact with them and they go off the grid, they want to question them like, hey, Billy, why did you act this way? Why our lives can't be the same way? When you watch what happened in the Capitol, they was beating them with all kind of stuff. And like what you just said, the guy went in his back, and you said it too, he reached for his back pocket. How many times you guys, the media, saw white people kill people and they get arrested? And we always get killed.
Just for reaching for something.
And then you guys acting like, but they was doing this, they was doing that. When is gonna be white people getting killed like us? It's never that. And I don't, and the media be justifying or trying to justify some of the things that happen to us. But it don't happen to white people. And I think,
Actually, it does.
not like it happened to us though. Not like,
Double the white people over the last 5 years have been killed by police. But granted, there are a lot more white people than there are black people.
I'm not gonna debate you, but numbers are numbers. If you look at how many black people in this country compared to how many white, there's a big difference.
But you have to understand, too, that there is a different category called death by suicide by a cop. And that's where you see most of our white counterparts actually die by. And so you have not seen one African-American who was looking to have a suicide by a cop. That's the biggest difference that we do see between our lives being parallel and being different. So yes, given how the African-American population only makes up about 13–14% of the U.S. population, for us to account for over 60% of the deaths by officers, that's the disproportionate amount that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a
So,
much higher
yeah, that's where the focus is. But that's why I said with the category by death by suicide by a cop, that's the category they give for those who are looking to die from a death of an officer by causing an outrage, by causing mass shootings, where you see a lot that will cause a shooting and take their own life if the officer will not take the life for them. This is what you're seeing. You don't see that happen in our community often. But what you see happening to us that's really so atrocious and so egregious, where, once again, we could go to a Walmart, we could go to a convenience store, we could go to a gas station, and our lives are always in peril. That's the biggest difference, and that's the biggest takeaway. And so to your question about what can we do, even though the state of Connecticut has done great in passing the Police Accountability Act, I also believe that it's up to the federal government to pass the legislation regarding the George Floyd Policing Act. That needs to be done immediately. Also, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act needs to be passed. So we also have to call upon our legislators, the ones that represent this state, and Representative DeLauro, Blumenthal, Murphy, call on those to be the leaders and be the champions of this legislation that does not just help African Americans, but it helps this country as a whole, where when we all succeed, we all succeed. It cannot be us against them, but we have to understand that we are in this together. So we cry out for anybody that lose their lives senselessly, whether it be white, Asian, Hispanic, Muslim, we cry out the same. Our heart still bleeds, and we're still pleading for justice for others where justice was not served. So we're asking you to continue to stand with us, continue to stand in this fight, but we will move forward together.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.